Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
This is our fourth event in the NSO Spring Speaker Series. We have for you Aggro Crab's lovely Nick Kaman and Caelan Pollock. I don't know if I pronounced that right.
Good enough.
Yeah. If you guys would like to talk a little bit more about yourselves.
Yeah, thanks for having us, everyone. Super excited to be here with Vassar College. So we're Aggro Crab Games. We are a indie game development studio that started out about 2 years ago. And our first game is called Going Under. And it released last September. I'm Nick. I am the art director for Aggro Crab Games and the studio head, which means I just answer emails and do whatever administrative stuff like bullshit we need so that everyone else can focus on what they love.
Nick pays our taxes.
I pay the taxes. And what else do I do? I picked up TikTok today. Like that's another thing that I do sometimes, just like see what opportunities are there, see what marketing we can do, that sort of thing. I think is one of Aggro Crab's biggest strengths. But nothing has made me feel like more of a fucking boomer than like trying to figure out TikTok. So maybe you guys could help me with that. I don't know if that's big at Vassar. Yeah, I'm seeing some babies. By the way, guys, we can feel free to interrupt me at any time during this talk. Like we have some stuff prepared, but what we're gonna do is just tell you guys a bit about our history as a studio, and kind of our story through the lens of like college and how we were able to leverage that in order to build our careers, which we think would be useful. And then it can be Q&A after that. But yeah, again, like super casual. We're just talking, hanging out, that sort of thing. I'll let Caelan introduce himself now.
Yeah, hi, I'm Caelan. I'm the other co-founder of Aggro Crab, and I'm lead programmer and narrative director, I suppose, and writer. So for Going Under, I did, probably a good half of the code and almost all of the writing. So yeah, like Nick said, we've been around as Aggro Crab for about 2 years now, which is when we started our first game and also the company. But we've known each other since college and have worked on games previously. So really, we could start over just by going over a bit of the history.
I want to first show the trailer for Going Under.
Oh yeah, let's give context.
Share sound, optimized for video. Okay, can everyone see the Nintendo Switch logo?
I can see it.
Yep.
So people are giving thumbs up.
Okay, I can't see you, so I'm just gonna play it.
No, we got audio.
This is Going Under. Welcome to your new internship.
Nick, shut up.
Yay, that's us. Oh, that's our stinger. Ta-da, Aggro Crab. Oh, that's their stinger, Team 17. We're back. So that's our game, Going Under. It's a narrative-heavy roguelike, similar to Hades, if you know about that game. And yeah, it released in September. And since then, we've kind of been working on new stuff. But let's back it all the way up. Let's see how this game came to be, and just like the cascade of snowballing butterfly effects that got us to the point where we are today, right? And for us, that all basically starts in college. So like many of you, like literally all of you guys, I guess Caelan, I would probably start with like me starting out in game dev club, right?
Yeah, this is you're talking right now. Go for it.
Yeah. I'm like 2 years older than Caelan, so I was in college first. So basically, I'm a freshman. I'm at University of Washington, and I'm just like many of you guys. I don't know what I want to do with my life. This isn't a video game development club, by the way, right? Like no such organization is like a geek club in general. Getting a lot of nods. Okay, cool. So take what you need from this talk. It's not. I'm not just saying go get a job as an indie dev because that's weird and hard. But yeah, I'm a freshman and I don't know what I want in life and in my career. But I know like I really love games and I spent a decent amount of high school like fiddling and in making little games. I made like a little Fire Emblem clone for a school project where we had like a programming class, right? So I kind of knew some programming, kind of knew some art just because I've always kind of been okay at art and practiced it. And that summer after my freshman year, with using those games that I had in my portfolio or just like had made, I got an internship that summer at this studio called Eline Media near the college campus, and they were making this game called Never Alone. And if you don't know, if you've maybe heard about Never Alone, it's a game about a Native Alaskan girl and her pet fox, and it's a co-op like puzzle platformer. But it's cool because it's kind of this it's this fun game but it has this educational aspect to it too, and like its cultural background to it. So I was the intern at this like 20-person studio on the great summer job, killing it. Turns out I was the worst intern of all time, which is part of the inspiration for Going Under, because that is about an intern who has her struggles, right? But Jackie, the main character in Going Under, is much more competent than I ever was, because I think it's just part of it is just like your first job. You just have no context or expectations for like how you're supposed to act, right? So I would just show up like 2 hours late. I'd have like I'd have like a bag of Jack in the Box. I'd just pull up and like sit at my desk and pull up twitch.tv and just start fucking around, like doing absolutely nothing. One time it was like 11 in the morning and I'm like 19 years old, right? But there's like a company keg and I just like fill up a glass of beer and I get caught because I filled it up in a glass instead of a mug. And my supervisor, the producer of the game, is just like, Nick, what are you doing? Throw that out. I'm like, okay. I don't know. I just wanted to be cool. So maybe you guys aren't as stupid as me. But and I mean, on top of all that, I took very bad notes. My actual job was to like run playtests, and just kind of be the guy that gets coffee or whatever for everyone who worked there. But I couldn't even get that right. Like I just like was a complete fuck up. And by the end of it, I actually like almost got fired. Like on my exit interview, they were like, yeah, when you did that Jack in the Box shit, I was like this close from just like booting you out. And they should have, honestly. I was really, really useless. But the fact that they didn't, and like just being in that environment kind of showed me that like something is really cool about a game studio and all these people coming together, different disciplines, different expertises, and just like a bunch of cool people who are creative and like making a thing that they care about. Like I saw that happen, and even though I didn't really get how to do it, it kind of like there's a spark there of like, oh, this is interesting.
We're also like still friends with most of these guys. Like there are
somehow
semi peers in the industry now, and so it's really funny for them to see Nick owning a studio.
It's so funny. I'm
after
like
being just the biggest piece of shit who just
for the Going Under launch day, like that my boss like showed up at the door to congratulate us. Matt just like said hi. That was really cool. But yeah, definitely less of a fuck up now. But anyway, that takes us into sophomore year, and by now I'm in the University Game Development Club. We have one. Maybe you guys, it's just like not a thing, or it's part of NSO. But
No, we have one. We invited them.
We have one teammate.
I think we have some-
dollars.
We're here.
Dollar, what's up, man?
Yeah.
Y'all
Game
rock.
Dev
Yeah, we have
Club
some
represent.
representatives here.
Yeah, no, you guys are the real ones, because like a game dev club I think is such a great way to just like do that sort of thing in a college environment, right? Because you want collaborators, you want people that can do the things that you can't, because when you're making a game, that's what it's all about, right? But so I'm in this club, and it's a pretty lame club. We got like 6 members, but I just come in once a week. I work on my project, and we do it. But then it was the end of one quarter, and the president at the time, who now works at Roblox. No, I don't think he works at Roblox anymore, but he did work for a while. The president at the time was like, "Hey, I'm graduating. Who wants to be president?" And I raised my hand. I'm gonna be president. Fuck it, right? No one else raised their hand that day. And that's my first lesson for you guys. Be the one who raises their hand. Seek out the opportunities when they land, and it'll get you somewhere. So that was a great part for me, because yeah, obviously there's no vote. I'm just president now. So next quarter, I'm like, all right, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna make this cool? And my legacy of Game Dev Club is, Caelan, you know this, is and always will be like the phoenix that rose from the ashes, right? Like, who saved the club.
I know that you will always keep saying that.
Well, I can back it up, because that first quarter when I was president, like I put out hella flyers, and I had this whole program, like, okay, we're gonna like do tutorials and shit. We're gonna get into small groups and make games. It's gonna be really exciting. And that actually led, like, that there were like 30 people that next quarter. It was way popping off. It's gone way past where I took it since. Like, people have been really, really good about, putting energy into the club and just like making it this great community, way more than I ever could have done myself. So gotta give them credit. But when I was president, that's when Caelan joined the club.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how we first met. But backing up the story a bit to just a random day in club, okay? This is a totally other tangent. This is like my first actual real game of becoming, this is when I became a game dev. I'm sitting in the club, I'm making a game. It's like a roguelike where you take drugs, because I just discovered weed, and I thought it was really cool. It's roguelike, you take drugs, and different drugs give you different powers. Cocaine, you run really fast. It was the stupidest fucking game ever. And I didn't know how to make games very well, so it wasn't really going anywhere. But I'm just hanging out, and this dude walks into the club. Not really a game dev club looking guy. Just like handsome white dude, like fucking chatted out of his mind.
Not talking about me,
frat
by the
boy.
way.
Well, that was just a couple days later. Caelan was the same experience there. But this guy, his name's Tyler. He just pulls up. He's just a business bro, finance major ass dude. No, he was actually a film major, entrepreneurship minor. Yeah, we have an entrepreneurship minor at UW. I don't know if you guys even have like frat people and finance people at Vassar. No, it's a liberal arts school, right?
Vaguely.
Okay,
We have
all right. So maybe
adjacent, but no, we don't even have frats. So
yeah, it doesn't have to be a frat, but like there's a type of person that's just like very entrepreneurial that you don't see too often in like creative spaces. I mean, you do, but this is my point. He shows up and he's got this pitch for like, he wants to make this like game for Will Ferrell to promote Anchorman 2. Because he's got like this, from the film club, he knows like someone who wants to promote the game and wants to throw some money at this project. And everyone in the club's just like, no, that sounds really stupid. I don't want to do it. But Tyler's like trying to talk to everyone, like convince them that this is cool. And for one reason or another, he sees a spark in me. and because I'm working on my game, right? And he's like, all right, forget the Will Ferrell thing, but do you want to like make a game and hang out this weekend? And again, taking an opportunity. I was like, yes, that sounds really fun. So Tyler comes over, and that weekend we make a prototype for a game in Unity where you have a phone. It's a mobile game that's just Brick Breaker, but instead of moving the paddle back and forth, you draw a line with your finger, and that's the paddle. And then the ball hits the bricks, paddle breaks, you make a new one, you keep drawing. And that game turned into what's now Smashy Break. Long story short, we spent the next, I guess, 2 years making that one, and it's now out on iOS and Android. So let me play the Smashy Break trailer. Every time we pull up a game, we'll pull up a trailer for it. Okay, you guys can see my screen. I can't see you guys anymore. Okay, this is really funny, but this Ronald OMG, like 5-year-old kid, I remember when our game came out, and he like made a video and had like 1,000 likes, and now this dude's got like millions of followers on like 4 million subscribers on YouTube. Jeez, the hustle. But this is the trailer. No, this isn't the trailer. This is just gameplay. Here's the trailer. Very extra trailer.
And this trailer is so fucking funny.
Oh, right now?
Like, what does this even mean?
Lego.
Wow, 2015. Jesus, we didn't launch in 2015. This definitely got pushed back to like March. But there it is. Yeah, it's a real video game, huh? Look at that. So we made that. And it was just basically me making the game, Tyler doing some like business stuff and level design. We brought on my roommate Felix, who we still work with to make music. And that was basically it. We made a game. And you know, part of making that game was just like finding opportunities. Again, that was the big thing. Like, how do you, you know, you make a game, right? But so many people are making games. So how do you stand out? How do you make sure like you pierce the just the sea of content that's out there? And at the time, we did find a few things like that. We were part of this program called the Taco Bell Indie Game Garage. We just applied for it and somehow got in. But basically, Taco Bell was like trying to promote indie games, and they like gave us a $500 Taco Bell gift card for winning. And at the time, that was like the nicest thing anyone's ever done for us, the biggest W that we've done, right? So that was amazing. And they like flew us down to TwitchCon 2016 to promote our game. I mean, I guess that is bigger than the gift card, but yeah, that was like a cool thing. It didn't do anything for marketing, but it was like, it meant something, right? And if you notice, it wasn't in that video, but oh my God. Another thing we did, we reached out to Video Game Donkey. You guys know Donkey. And we were just like, hey, can we put a donkey smashy in this game? And you're one of the balls that hits the bricks, and can you voice act it? And at the time, he's like not as big as he is now. So he's like, okay, sure. And he just did it for us. And that got us like huge numbers. So just like random stuff like that, right?
I was about to say, like, I knew I had heard of the game somehow, and that explains it right there.
Yeah, he featured us in his like best of the year video. And it was definitely like not one of the best games of the year, but there you go. So by the end of Smashy Break, I was feeling really good about like making games. But I was definitely still like trying to graduate college in my major and get a degree and go into the, you know, world of the labor force, I guess, of like big tech. Because I had a degree, I was going for a degree in human-centered design and engineering. which is just a fancy way to say UI UX design. One more thing on Smashy Break. I remember we just threw the most bitchin' party in the world. Like it was just this classic college party with like 200 people showed up for the launch of the game, and we still had that Taco Bell gift card. So we like catered the whole party with Taco Bell. It was incredible. But yeah, I miss launch parties. We did not get to have one for Going Under in the proper sense of the word. Next time. Anyway, at the end of Smashy Brick, look, I was like trying to find a way out of having to get my degree, work a real job, and do all these things. And I was feeling so good about Smashy Brick, so interested in pursuing this. And Tyler did not, right? Like he was like, okay, this isn't really for me. I'm gonna go back to like the startup game, entrepreneur stuff. So I was kind of out of people to work with. And I've been talking to a lot, so Caelan, I might pass it off to you because this is kind of where you enter the picture.
Yeah, please.
Awesome.
Well, but like, yeah, whatever. I'll just start talking. I need to like focus up here because like Nick, this is what always happens is like Nick can talk for like so long about anything if he puts his mind to it. And then I hop on after him and I'll just like gloss over things. I'm just like, yeah, then we made Treadnoughts.
Then we made Treadnoughts.
But so like around the same time, like I was coming in to the game dev club while Nick was the president, and I really like hadn't done game work in like a long ass time. This was me trying to like get back into it. It was something that was like my kind of childhood dream. And then I like mostly self-taught myself programming because I was like, well, no one else wants to program my games for me. But then I pulled up in college and I was like, well, I better just like learn to code for real and get like a real job. So at the time I was trying to get into like computer science at our college, which is just a huge, just an absolute shit show at UW.
Yeah, I also tried.
But there was basically a point at which I said, you know, fuck it, I'm going to prototype a game and have something real so that at least I know I can do it, because nothing I had ever done resulted in like a finished kind of product, like a finished playable game, really, like much less a sellable product. And I pulled up to club at one point with like a prototype of this game, which at the time was called Tank to the Skies. There was just like a little adventure game where you play a tank and you can like launch yourself around as a platformer with your little cannon fire. But long story short, it turned into like a PvP game. And Nick was working on this other, Nick was basically working on starting a new studio with his other friend he'd met. And you guys met at like Range convention or something, right?
We met at like a local convention and we were showing off Smashy Brick at that convention.
That was iFest, yeah, right?
Yeah, iFest, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, long story short, they saw something in that and decided they were looking for like kind of a, you know, a flagship IP to like make original content with for the company. And they asked me if I wanted to co-develop it with them, and I said yes. And so for the next 2 years or so, we were making what would be renamed into Treadnoughts. And that was pretty fun. We showed it off at PAX. We got to do, like, for the first time, sort of the typical game dev kind of circuit of promoting the game and getting ready for like a real release as like publishers, because we were self-publishing the game.
You want me to pull it up?
Yeah, pull up the trailer for it.
Okay, this is the last trailer. This is their third game. Another
rated everyone 10 and up.
Switch trailer. Oh, we went hard for this one. I haven't seen this in a while.
I know, dude. You pulled like all-nighters on this fucking cinematic.
Yeah.
This destroyed you.
Oh, but it's so good.
It looks so good.
How did I do this? Like, I can't do this anymore.
This is like the best animation you did in your life.
Yeah.
Look how good that is.
And then this.
And it's like, it looks way cooler than the game, is the other thing.
Yeah. So it's like 4-person, like local multiplayer sort of arena fighting game. If you've played what's it called? Towerfall. It's kind of like that. Yeah. It didn't start out that way. It was in your first version, it was a Metroidvania.
I know. Yo, man, we'll send you... Wait, no, I don't even know if we still have access to Dreadnought's keys.
I wouldn't know where they are. It's probably cheap. I think Reed probably put it on sale.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's all about doing like crazy tricks, sticking to the ceiling, acrobatics. You shoot the ground and you propel yourself up.
I think the online servers are still up, right?
I have no idea.
I sure hope so.
Ta-da. We did it.
So yeah, we learned a lot during development of this game, and a huge amount of the things we learned were like what we were doing wrong, because I think it was first of all like a blast to develop it, and like we got to the indie mega booth at PAX, and like so many people and like kids were coming through and playing it and having a great time, and it was just a super exciting sort of period. But I think the game kind of stole a piece of our soul in various ways for all of us. Like, I think we all worked far too hard on this game. I mean, I was writing all the netcode, which is not something I'd ever done before. And this game is like a shit show with its netcode. We were just inexperienced and kind of dove straight into this project that was way more ambitious than we anticipated. And we were definitely like quite burnt by the end of it. And ultimately, Nick and I would split off from Top Stitch Games. Not really as like a direct result of being burnt on Dreadnoughts, but it was like, that was kind of the start. Like, I personally found it hard to imagine jumping into like another original game after that. Especially after it being something that like had started off as my little pet game to prove I could still make video games, and turned into like this massive like 2-year ambition project.
Yeah. I also want to add that like just as a note for you guys, like something that will happen if you like get super invested in something is that you will just like work 12-hour days 6 days a week on it, and you'll like fuck yourself up, right? And part of that is like when you're young you can kind of get away with that until you can't. And now it just like nowadays I just can't do that. I physically can't like work that hard because I feel it coming on in my body, and it's just like I'm like repelled, right?
And it's only 25. Like, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it happens fast, especially
it's gonna
if
happen far sooner than you think. This isn't like an in your 40s thing. You can no longer.
Especially if you have a moment that makes you burn out, because that you're burned out. You actually get a little fucked up from it. It's not to freak anyone out, but just like, you know, you got it. The whole industry likes to say crunch is bad, and there's a reason for that, because people don't listen.
Right. And so, I mean, what we realized kind of at the end of that project was like, that's not something sustainable, you know? If we're to keep making games like that, we're gonna get maybe like 1 or 2 more out of us before we like have a nervous breakdown and quit for good.
Mhm.
And
Well, the
that's
other
not-
part of that too, of the stress, was not having money.
Right.
Like
And
the
so-
Smashy Brick was
Right.
just
And
like,
second of all, right, yeah, like Smashy Brick, when it was effectively, I'm imagining, you know, when it was effectively students making it in their spare time.
yeah, it's a
not,
spare time project. Yeah.
there's no pressure on it to sell well. Whereas like people invested a lot of their like Nick and Reed both invested a lot of their money into Treadnoughts. And I wasn't really investing money because I didn't have any, but I was sacrificing other opportunities. Like I dropped out of college during this time straight up to
Yes.
once I realized this could be like a real kind of career, I did. And then we launch and like, you know, the numbers are okay at best. It wasn't like a complete bail immediately, everyone's broke situation, but like it was not great. And certainly like if we don't want to be starving artists, if we want to actually turn this into a sustainable career, that was not going to fly. This was clearly like a much lower level of success than we needed in order to be able to do this consistently. And in the interim between like that and figuring out another project, we were working on contract work for Mixer.
We were lucky to get that work. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a lead you got from your old boss, right?
Dude, no. Reed found it from a random, like, just like rubbing elbows, shoulders. What is it? Is it
Oh, for
shoulders?
real?
With a Microsoft guy. And then Reed gave that connection back to my old boss.
That's right. It was the opposite.
Yeah.
I
It's
remember
like
that.
the homie move, right? Like that's
I remember that. But I mean, yeah. So I mean, that's something that a surprising amount of game devs do. Like it's actually like a whole little hidden industry. Is like people making outsourced games, either to like promote something, or for like a new platform where they're just going to where like if a company's launching a new game platform, they will typically like make it rain on people in order to fill that platform with exclusive content on day one. And what we were working on at the time was like a basically like an interactive game for Mixer. So pour one out. You can imagine how well that went long term. But like we got paid pretty fucking handsomely to do it, which at the time like blew our minds. Like this was not something we'd previously experienced. But it didn't take that long after that project was out the door for us to kind of break apart. Because the other thing that I realized is that experience also sucked in its own way, because I was basically just burning myself out again, except this time I was just doing it to make money instead of really doing it for something I felt super passionately about. Which is fine. Like that's just called a job. But I mean, if I'm gonna be making games for a living, like I want to make what I want to make. Otherwise, I'll just go find a normie job. You know what I mean? Like programmer jobs can like actually be kind of good, as it turns out. But
we make way less money now than a programmer does. Believe me. So it's like if you want money, you should do that. Don't do this.
I mean, I've always described game dev as like very profitable art and very unprofitable tech.
Yeah, it's definitely right there in between. But our problem wasn't necessarily needing to make $1 million. It was just like, how do we do this sustainably?
Right.
And
so
it turns out, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna start talking about Aggro Crab basically.
Yeah, it turns out there's another way. I'll pick it back up.
Well, hold on. So, but basically,
we had a theory,
right? But so Nick and I left Top Stitch, and we knew we wanted to start a studio together long before we knew what the game was going to be. And basically, what was most important to us was doing this sustainably, like for ourselves and for the people we ultimately hire. Because I mean, what's happening, what happened to us is happens like all over the industry all the time. Like people get in and like rough it out for like a few years, and then they burn out and they find something that like isn't going to rob them of their whole life. And so from the start, like our big question was, how do we do this sustainably? Because we don't want to burn out in another game or two. We want to be doing this for decades. We want this to be our career.
So turns out there's another way. And this was our theory going into creating Aggro Crab together. If we can get this way, then we can make a game. And that's called a publisher. So there's these people called publishers, specifically indie game publishers, who will pay you money to make the game that you want to make. Crazy, right? And in exchange for that, you just have to give them your soul. No, I mean, just some profit share. So that's what we pursued at this, and this was the start of 2019. Caelan and I are sitting down and we're like, okay, we just have to pitch a game to publishers, and Game Developers Conference, the big yearly event in San Francisco, that's coming up in 2 months. We got 2 months to just like put something together, put ourselves out there and try to get some money. And if that works out, then maybe we'll have a studio. And we did that. We figured we were we were just talking about this, Caelan, like how we thought of the game going under.
Right.
And at the time, this game had come out in early access called Hades on the Epic Games Store. And that was kind of like a pretty cool thing for us to see, because we knew we wanted to make like a narrative heavy roguelike, because Caelan was good at story stuff. A roguelike is an easy genre for indie devs to make. Like that seemed cool. And Hades was doing a great job of it. We ended up dropping like their format. We actually had a very similar format to Hades, but we're like, okay, this game's gonna steal our thunder if we do that. And it turned out, this is going under, so it turned into what you saw, this kind of like third person Zelda style beat 'em up dungeon crawler. And one day we were on a walk, like we were having trouble thinking of what the game's about. We know we wanted to like make satire of startups and the tech industry, because we're both living in Seattle. Just that shit's everywhere. We went to college with people like Tyler, who just like unironically think cryptocurrency is the coolest thing in the world. Like, and it's just like, we need to make fun of you. Like, this is not acceptable. But then like, what's
I
the
didn't even mention Startup House during Treadnoughts.
Oh yeah, we lived in a startup house when we were making Treadnoughts. That contributed to the burnout, because we would just wake up and be on the grind, right? And there were like 2 other startups working out of this house, which was like a fun thing in its own way, because everyone's just like trying to find success, and we can like commiserate and collaborate. But it was definitely like a weird thing,
And the
a
house
weird
was
culture,
fucking whack.
and also very dirty.
And I stayed in the basement.
Big spiders.
There were big spiders there. Shit sucked.
I'm sorry, Caelan. But that did inspire Going Under. And once we realized the premise of the game, the premise of Going Under being like, when a company goes out of business, they like become cursed, and everyone who worked there becomes a monster, and the office itself like becomes this dungeon you have to crawl through. Like that just clicked. And then we're like, okay, this is cool. This is a game. We can do this. Long story short, we ended up going to GDC, talking to a bunch of publishers, getting rejected by most. We talked to like Devolver and Humble Bundle and all these fucking people. And we went with Team 17. They're the ones that picked us up. And it was like, great. Okay, that we have funding. We brought on real contractors and people to work with us. We got an office space. And more than ever, it felt like we were like legit indie devs. Twitter started to do well for us. Like, this game was exciting. Launched. And the end, everyone was happy. No, I don't know.
I mean, something happened in the middle, I think, that was like a little bit of a global event.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That happened, but it only happens to me and Caelan. Everyone else was fine. In March, we actually had to stop working out of an office and finish the rest of the game from home. That was pretty funny and weird. But like that was, we put our masks on. We work from home. Like if you work on a computer, like your life's kind of fine. We definitely like didn't have it rough, but it affected our launch. It affected our porting process, and things were just a little dicier than they had to be. But we did it. We got the game out the door, and we did it way more sustainably than we ever did Treadnoughts. We usually worked 8-hour days. If we worked hard, it was like me and Caelan putting in, a late night every other week or something like that. Like I feel really good about how we made Going Under. And in the end, we made something we're really, really proud of. Like this is my biggest accomplishment ever. This game did well. Like people, it was critically, successful with the press and review websites. We've got great reviews on Steam. By all accounts, it's like a good game. Turns out we're hilarious. Like people think the game's funny. People think Caelan wrote it well, and it's very validating, right? Because you spend the few days before launch, you're just like, oh my god, what if I just suck and everyone's been gaslighting me this whole time into thinking my game's good, and all the reviews are going to come out and say it's a buggy piece of shit and we don't deserve love and all that, and you just like can't sleep at night, right? But like that didn't happen. It actually turned out all right, and for that, like I'm super grateful, right? So we made the game we wanted, and that was good. But what went wrong? There were things that went wrong too. First off, Hades came out of early access into a full release like a week before us, and our launch date was like locked in at that point and we couldn't change it. And if you guys have played that game, you'll know it's the fucking game of the year. Amazing, fucking best game ever, winning every award, and there's just no way that anyone could have their game be talked about when that game exists in people's headspace. And that's okay. I mean, it did, overshadow our launch a little bit, but that's going to happen sometimes. You just get unlucky with certain things. And in some ways, it probably did contribute to our success because people who like Hades are probably looking for more narrative-heavy roguelikes to play, and there's only one other one that exists. There's probably more. There's probably more than one other one. What else went wrong, Caelan?
I mean, at that point, we were still definitely moving towards a more sustainable kind of workflow, but we weren't used to working with numbers that were this large. Like we were not used to asking for money and like receiving what we ask for. So when we planned this project, we were very much like, okay, what's the cheapest we can make this happen for? Like, let's ask for that. And what we realized over the course of that game is that that is not a good way to sustainably run your business. When you're going to be working on this for like 2 years, you need the buffer. You need to be able to change your plans without just ruining your entire budget. And not just for the sake of like the company's financial health, but for like everyone working for you. Like they want to know that their jobs are safe and that things are healthy. They don't want to be forced to do something they didn't plan on because we can't hire someone new to do it. And, ultimately, I think, although it went really well in general and was a huge step up from our previous projects, we just still have a long way to go. And that's what we're bringing forward into our next project. And so we are currently developing our game 2, which we can't tell you about because it's top secret.
Top secret.
But generally, moving forward, we want to continue to be sustainable. We want to build a diverse team, which is something that everyone says they want to do, but it turns out is actually quite difficult to put your money where your mouth is, because what happens, where the challenge comes from in building diversity on a team is like the same people that, you know, might be marginalized in the industry for various reasons. Like they're going to probably not have portfolios that are as full or resumes that are as impressive, like for those same reasons. They just don't have those opportunities yet. So for us, it's a lot of it is about, you know, taking that leap and giving people opportunities where they have talent but haven't been able to get their foot in the door yet. So we want to hire, you know, young people and hire like people who are more junior to do like impressive tasks, because we want to give people a chance. We don't just want to seek out people who are like industry veterans who are like way older than us and already know their shit. We want to grow together.
Yeah. I mean, maybe one industry veteran would be good, because we really, coming from not AAA and not game school, there's a lot of holes in our knowledge and
Right.
just stuff we have to learn along the way. But I agree with Caelan, right? Like, you know, we know what that's like, having to claw our way into the industry. And we're pretty privileged by all accounts. Like Caelan and I had the resources to make this happen. And a lot of people don't have the safety net to do so. And like, if it was hard for us, we can only imagine like how hard it must be for someone else, right? Like we, and I think we're in a good position now, we're starting to be, to actually pay it forward and bring people along for the ride.
Yeah. I mean, before that's basically our whole story leading up to now. And before we go to questions, I guess just wanted to say like one of the like recurring factors in what we've both said about our history is like, and especially like before we founded Aggro Crab, is like kind of having weird opportunities appear for us. And, you know, I wouldn't go as far as to say fall into our lap, but certainly like things showing up sort of by the whim of the universe that we just ended up jumping on. And there are a few ways to kind of interpret that. The first is that like we're just lucky bastards, which is like certainly a valid way to interpret it, because like you do need luck to be successful in something like this. Like I would never argue otherwise. And like Nick said, you know, if like I you know, took a risk, not only just like dropping out of college, but like when I first prototyped the game, just to like, I did that instead of getting like a summer job. And that's not something everyone can afford to do. Like I was living with my dad. Like there are a whole bunch of little things that add up to that kind of success. Where was I going? Where am I going with this, dude? I got vaccine lightheadedness. Hold on one second. My point is, if I'm to like extract like real wisdom from that though, it's just to like be ready for those opportunities, because you do need luck, but you also like you need to be ready to act on that luck when it takes place. Like if Nick hadn't taken the opportunity to be the president, you know, and like said yes to some things that sounded at the time like very strange deals, I think we both never would have gotten to the place where we are now, where we're like actually able to be in charge of our own destiny a whole lot more and chase the kind of things we think are important to us with our studio. So that's what I would say, is not to just realize that it does take luck to get into a weird industry like this and be successful at it. And it's something that's very easy to be bitter about, but it's also very easy to like, if you let yourself, to just like embrace it and be prepared for weird things to happen to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talk about bitterness, right? There's a lot of times we weren't lucky. There are other game studios who are much luckier than us. And I can count a few times in the last year on Going Under that we were very unlucky. Hades is one of the more tame ones, being a Hades taking our thunder, whatever. But you got to roll with the punches too. And you got to like not hold grudges against stuff. Not that I would hold grudges against Hades. I'm talking about other shit. But like, stuff will happen, but there's always another opportunity around the corner. And right now, we have one of those to make game 2. We got a way bigger budget than we ever did on Going Under. And we got that opportunity because, throughout all what may have happened, we did make a good game with the first time. And now people kind of trust us a little more with their money. And that's why I feel like finally now we're hitting a point of sustainability where it's like, okay, even if this one isn't great, at least we can do another one. I know we can do another one.
Right.
Boom. That's it. Are we good? Anything?
Yeah, I think.
Boom. 1 hour. Perfect.
I think that's most of our story.
Yeah.
So I think.
Crushed it.
I think we just love to answer
Everyone
any questions anyone has.
unmute and clap. It's so weird. Zoom. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
People are sending the clap emoji.
You can do that too. Does that make a sound if you send the clap emoji? No, it just shows up. That's so lame.
That's a really great feature.
It'd be a great feature if it, but that's okay. Thank you guys. Thank you for listening to us.
But yeah, that's our spiel.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. Let's open up the floor to questions now, I think.
Please.
Sure. Whoever.
I'll take the
Dollar,
first
go
one
ahead.
then. Yeah, so I just founded a game design org at Vassar a year ago, so we're kind of new to the game
Yes.
as well. And we actually made a game introducing Vassar to new and prospective students. So we actually got to convince the president and the admissions house to advertise it for us.
Oh, nice.
So so that's the idea. But yeah, I guess the question lies in when you're running the student game design org at U Washington, have you encountered the situation where a lot of org member had to balance between game design and schoolwork where there isn't much energy going on in the student organization, and how do you make the org a sustainable organization?
That's a really good question. Like, that's something you always deal with, right? Like, if you're running a club and people just aren't really putting in work, and it's like, what am I doing this for? Like, I can't be energetic for you. But on the other hand, like, if you can bring an energy to the club, it does kind of light up the room if you do it right, or you can bring in like the right guests to kind of bring that. Like I remember just working really, really hard to make talks that are interesting or funny or enlightening, and then if it's funny enough, then it might spark an inside joke with the club or like a meme, and then that can keep going. Like, people can bond over that. I think another more practical thing is like, you have to have bite-sized projects for people to participate in, like a game jam, right? You can do a game jam if it's short enough that people can dedicate the time to do it, but you can't expect people to like go off and everyone's busy and doesn't really have the resources to do everything. But if you can get, I don't know how often you meet, maybe it's once a week, right? But if you can find the people who do care and say, hey, this week is your turn to talk about something that you think is cool, you want to share something interesting, next week it's your turn, blah blah blah, then you can kind of start building momentum. I don't know, it's hard.
Yeah, I think what I would say is like, when someone, because I was an officer too, I was never president of this club, but like when people do show up who are passionate and who do have like the same spark you want to have, just like really celebrate the shit out of that, like make them feel like it was worth it and make them feel included.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something game jams are great for, like, because even if you've got like 5 people in the club, if they're all interested in finding a weekend sometime to like make a game, suddenly you've gone from like 0 projects to 5, and like those can catch other people's attention. Like once you're doing something like that, I think it's looking for little ways to inspire people like that and making them feel like their time invested is powerful. Then it starts to very quickly become its own reward. You know, by the time, you know, when Nick became president, it was, you know, just like 5 guys who basically knew each other through club, kind of just vibing in a room they managed to get and working on their own projects, you know? So it was definitely like a gradual thing.
Well, I mean, on the last part too, right? Like, at the start of every quarter, you're gonna have new people, or you should if you advertise. Have your first meeting or your second meeting be like a tutorial. Like, hey, everyone, download this version of Unity. We're gonna make Flappy Bird in half an hour all together, and then you just have people on the same page. Or if they've never made a game before, then they made a game now in half an hour, and then it's like, oh, I can do it. Oh, I can. If I'm curious, then I have the path to go down now. I'm not at square 0, right? Like that's really helpful.
Dog did that for Doodle Jump. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Dude, you're killing it then. That's great.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, we did Unity first, but then I started to find analog games sort of more appealing to everybody. We actually
That's great too.
last week we built a remake for tic-tac-toe. So I think, yeah, I think I totally agree with you guys. These bite-sized project sort of bond people very well, and yeah,
and like don't worry too much about like being small. Like certainly I think you should always look for ways to like be growing and be attracting like new inspired people, but also like be passionate about what you already have, you know, because that's what makes someone feel wanted when they step in the door.
Next question.
Okay, so
Sure.
I'm interested in game design more like I have a game idea and I do code, but I've never like sat down, had little projects like this. And so coming from more of a creative aspect of how do you like break down, right? Because for one, I don't know, whatever it's going to be, it's kind of more of a side project at this point, but it's still something I'm very interested in doing, and like breaking down of like, okay, how am I going to just actually get this into something I can do?
Mm-hmm. Are you in his club? First
talk to us.
Yeah,
There we go.
Existed.
But I mean, as far as let me think for a second.
The classic advice for anyone just trying to start out and do something right is do the smallest possible thing. Everyone, they've got their first game idea. They want it to be this huge, great thing. But then you start and you realize, oh, wait, I have to actually make all that and have a solution for every problem that this game might come up with, right? Like it's just so much bigger than you ever expect. So really make it as small as possible. Make it even smaller than that. Try to make that. And if you can finish that, then you win. You did it. Then you can make something a little bigger, right? Because you'll know how now.
Yeah, and like I would treat it, if you want to, for example, build coding skills to make your own game, which isn't necessarily what you want. But like if you want to work on a team and be a successful part of it, you need to, I think, build some kind of specific skill. Like for me, that was code when I was in like high school, college. For Nick, that was his art.
I also code.
Well, yeah, Nick also codes.
I think code's important, I will say.
Yeah, I think if you're looking to be on a small team, like coding is really valuable, and you don't have to be a CS nerd who's like a wizard brain to be able to code in a game engine and have it like be functional. And so when it comes to like building those types of skills you're not used to yet, like treat it as, I think, cultivating skills rather than building towards like your dream project. You know, it's like if someone wants to learn how to paint, you know, they don't go hit up the fucking Sistine Chapel. I don't know what this metaphor is, but like you're gonna start out with something very simple, and you're gonna accept this, like, okay, this is probably gonna be whack, but then the thing I do after it is going to be better, and so on and so forth. So really, like, when you're starting from a creative point of view, and what you want is to build your technical skills to be able to make it a reality, like Nick said, just like start with something small and treat it as cultivating your skills.
Yeah, there were a lot of games on the way before I made Smashy Brick or anything of the sort. Terrible, terrible games. Any more questions?
Like from a practical perspective, if you're trying to create a workplace that like isn't going to be forced to do, you know, burnout or force people to work more than 40 hours a week or whatever, how are you like, how do you get around publishers seeing like everybody else who is doing that and is pushing themselves much harder? Like, yeah, basically, how do you compete?
The answer is A, it's difficult, but not as much as you might think. Like, I don't think it has ever crossed our minds for us that we're like competing with studios that do crunch way more than us and they've like got the leg up. It's not, although ultimately like we're entering a market with competition, as indies, like a rising tide really does raise all boats. Like
80s.
people see the way we work and we like, yeah, exactly. Like Hayes probably took a shitload of our direct sales away on week one and like the following month or whatever, but it also got like tons of new people into the roguelike genre, you know? So like many months
it's hard to
on,
account for.
Yeah, exactly. Many months on, like who's to say how much they hurt us and helped us. So I think looking at it as direct competition is kind of what we try to avoid. Obviously, it's like, it's hard to avoid, but that's what we like strive for. And then as far as like, I mean, it sucks to say, but like what's enabled us to not crunch is really just like having enough money. Like when we were broke, we worked really, really fucking hard to compensate. And now we've proven out our projects and like people are willing to trust us with more to build this game and have it be sustainable. Like if with our new project, if someone's job isn't enough, if someone's working too hard on their job, somebody else can take that off their plate. It's like a situation we've never been in before. And you know, it's kind of a shitty answer to be like, yeah, we can now afford to be sustainable on that level. But that is kind of like what we've been building towards, and like every step towards making the studio more successful, you know, has been with that in mind, where it's like, we're going to reinvest this to make things more comfortable for everybody next time at one step at a time.
I think I'd also add that, like, you know, you have a point that like no matter how much money you have, you still have a budget. You still have a time limit for how long you want to reasonably spend on something in terms of years, right? So there's still the question of how hard do I want to work on this with my constraints? Because I can always work a little harder and it can always be a little better, right? So you have to kind of have this mentality of like, okay, it's good enough. I'm going to limit how good I need this game to be. If you look at Going Under, right, like one of the big things we did was not put a ton of effort into any one particular thing. Look at all the characters and the models. They're all like cylinders and spheres, very simple to make. When it comes together, it makes something that's cohesive and works. But we planned that in ahead of time so that we knew that we wouldn't have to kill ourselves to make it happen. And that's a pretty important thing that you should consider when making a project. How can I make this smarter, not harder? That's going to save you a lot of heartache later down the road.
Yeah, we're very into perfect being the enemy of good in that regard.
Quick and dirty.
Right. Does that answer the question? We kind of bopped around a bit there.
Yeah. I think you got the gist of it.
Cool.
I'm just saying what comes to mind, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, if nobody else has one, I guess I had a question on a somewhat similar note. One of the things that like strikes me about Going Under is, it's just very, very critical of, internship and entrepreneurial culture. And obviously there's a bit of a distinction between that and, investors for, your next game and such. But I guess I was curious, did it ever cross your mind, or did you ever think about, how is basically putting out being so critical and scathing, how do we navigate, or like, how do we be so scathing of the systems we're within while we still have to work with them?
Yeah. I mean, that's like, I don't know if you use Twitter, but like, that's everyone on game dev Twitter is like being critical of systems while existing in them. And really, like, we did wonder, like, is this going to burn? We never really questioned if it would like burn bridges with companies that might work with in the future, because ultimately, like, the people we're working with, it's like if someone in the game like vaguely references like Jeff Bezos, the guy who like works for funding games through Twitch isn't Jeff Bezos. You know what I mean? Like, those people can take a joke. For the most part, when you're punching up like that high, it's not like, we don't engage in slander in this game, so short of that, like, people can take a joke. I don't think we ever felt like we needed to be afraid of that.
Yeah, and our publisher was pretty good about not like censoring our ideas or whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah.
I also think we knew like where to draw the line.
Right, exactly. Like, it could have been way more explicit, but we didn't want it to be like, it wasn't so much we were afraid as we didn't want this to be like a game where the controversy was the point. We want to say what we feel, but in a way that's still digestible for people, because I think that's A, the best way to get people to actually think about things, and B, I never wanted the discourse about the game to become larger than the game. And I think we did a pretty good job of that, of like, I saw that. I think we did a pretty good job of like not stepping on anyone's toes so much that like our Discord became full of like weirdos. Gamers, TM. Just like people who were like, people come in who are like, I heard you don't like Elon Musk very much. Let me tell you why you should die.
People on Steam are like, why can I only play as a woman? How dare you?
Like, we generally wanted it to be a happy experience for the people that can already relate to it, not to like stir up annoyance and controversy in people that were like not on our side. Like, we're not targeting people. This isn't going to turn anyone from like a fucking CEO to like, oh, I guess I should treat my employees better, like have a eye-popping moment. Like, it's a game at the end of the day. What we wanted is to like build that sense of community between people who are fed up with the kind of shit we're criticizing in the game.
Yeah.
So it was less like, oh, we better censor this ahead of time in case, Google gets mad, and more just like, that's just not the vibe we are chasing with our criticism.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I think like that again, I guess that's what I was saying is like I was very surprised by just like almost how much you guys were able to say. So yeah, it's good that you really didn't have to tone it down too much.
Yeah, it's always a fine line, like when we're making a studio with the express goal of being like, hey, we want to be able to say what we want to say, like politically, or at the very least, like touch on like controversial emotional topics or something like that. Like, it's always a fine line between we are saying what we want to say and we're doing this with the express purpose of stirring controversy. And we certainly always want to be the former. We always start from a place of, like, despite the company name, like, we start from a place of this kind of camaraderie. Like, I think that the tone of Going Under is very much more like we're all in this shit together, rather than like you should, hit your boss with a keyboard, despite the gameplay sometimes suggesting otherwise.
Exactly. I saw a few more hands go up throughout.
Yeah, I think if no one else is going to,
Go
I'll
for it.
take something here. Yeah, at first, I really appreciate you the talk about trying to manage capital G gamers on a Discord server. That's I can relate. But I want to ask about how do you keep up with developments in games in general? Is that along the lines of playing stuff as it comes out, or is there further things you look into to keep up, like knowledge in
Just like with the culture and like
in
the discourse and shit?
or not just like culture and discourse, but I mean like new things that people are pioneering in game design in general. How do you try to keep up with that?
I mean, we don't even. Sorry, did you want to take this, Nick?
I mean, I just think like we don't really do that, right? Or like I don't go too far out of my way to do research on the industry or on games. If you're a game dev, you got to kind of be on Twitter to just get the discourse and culture, but you're not really talking about that. You're talking about like, design stuff, tech stuff. But like, I kind of personally am a traditionalist. Like, I want to make games that are like Zelda Ocarina of Time. So I don't need too much of the new shit to figure that out, to figure that one out. I just need like heart. But it's always cool to see what other studios are doing.
I mean, the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think you're full of shit, but I can't like explain why without like spoiling what the genre of the new game is.
Oh,
but,
true.
like,
yeah, but that's just like.
But like we do our fair share of research, but it's not like we're going out into like hard to find. We're not like analyzing the fucking Steam charts like week by week.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
We're really
right?
just we're both pretty chronically on Twitter. Like, we're talking to we're always talking to people in the industry and like hearing what they have to say. So we generally have an idea of like what's hype in the industry. And if something's relevant to what we want to pursue, we
VTuber.
People
talking shit in Zoom chat. I see.
I know. If something's similar to what we want to make, we will certainly like analyze their trailers. We'll sometimes get together and like play the game and do like a deeper analysis of it and how those games, did in the market, like affects us. It's more along the lines of like, oh, we want to make this one decision in our game differently. We don't usually start from a place of marketability. What we do is we know what we want to make, and then we're like, okay, how can this become a successful marketable project, assuming that nothing is off the table? Like, we're not even beholden to genre. In the case of like Going Under, we started off with just being like, hey, we want to make a fun roguelike that's like similar to Hades, and we want to satirize the tech industry in some way. And so how that became like a real product was sort of a process. We realized, hey, we better not be too close to Hades or we're going to be completely eclipsed by Hades. And the exact flavor of how we wanted to be a satire game, which is not something that there's a lot of out there. I think a lot of games have like satirical elements. Very few are like satire games through and through. But how exactly we settled on that stuff specifically was just like a process. It wasn't a deeply calculated, here's this game's going to be the next big thing from the drop.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not into that like, deep analysis. Let's like figure out what the next huge
Let's
wave
fast follow Among Us, make our own.
Yeah, let's follow like what the huge wave in gaming is right now, or try to predict it 2 years in the future. Because I think
that's the big thing. It is 2 years down. You just don't know.
Right. It's kind of a fool's errand, because if we're making ambitious projects that take 2 years at minimum, like it's like what we're gonna make the next Fall Guys. The next Fall Guys, by the time we launch, is gonna be something completely different. It's not the kids aren't gonna want bean people anymore. Who knows what they're gonna want? They're gonna be done with Amogus. But like, yeah, ultimately, that's really all I have to say. Is that we follow it, but we don't let it like define our actions. We first and foremost make the games we want to play.
When you're in a situation like making a game where you have a lot of different people that are working on like different smaller aspects, how do you handle like communicating about like the overall product?
We're working on it.
Yeah, the answer is it's really fucking hard, and we're still figuring it out. Like, we did not have a full-time producer on Going Under. We're definitely going to need one for this project, because we're going from a team of 6 to like a team of like 10 or 11.
A producer is the person who does that exact thing of project management, organization, checking in with people, making sure they're doing the right thing and it's going to ship on time. We didn't have that. A lot of indie games don't have that because they're too small for it. And you really just got to have enough meetings among yourselves to figure things out along the way and take notes, track your tasks on some software and get it done that way.
Yeah. I mean, also like stepping forward into a project of a larger team size has required us to take, or it will as we actually grow. Our team's not like complete yet, but it will require us to take roles that are more managerial, less like actually doing the grunt work at all times. I think especially Nick, because we're going from the art team being like 2 people or 3 people, where one is like very part-time, to the art team being like a good 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, and so once that
like
happens,
on Going Under, like Nick did a shitload of the modeling. He did all the like character portraits. He really carried the art team through his actual like asset production. In this new game, he's going to need to be much more of like an art director who is like, let's make sure all of these other people's shit is in sync, like as his full-time job.
Yeah, I've graduated from actually doing art. Hooray.
Right.
Yeah, I'll still do concepts and stuff, but not like production.
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry. I have no real better insight than that, other than like that's something we're feeling out. This is going to be the first time we've been on a team where like communication between kind of departments, even though like at a team scale of 11, that is still like a kind of a hoity-toity term to use, but communication between different disciplines is going to be like make or break for this project. When there's 5 of us all sitting in a room, you don't really miss out on too much. But it's definitely becomes a persistent challenge as we grow. And it also like having a dedicated producer would have been good for us in Going Under.
that's all also kind of like the boring shit. And like, yeah, you want to be organized. There's a lot of hurdles and challenges. But dude, like the best feeling is when your team comes together. There's the gameplay, the story, the art, the music, and it just comes together into this synesthesia. And it's just holy shit, it's a video game now. Like that feels so good. When you chase that and achieve that, it's just like the best. So
yeah, and actually
try
I guess like with that in mind, I think what's been important on all our project is like having a kind of a real guiding star vibe from the
Vibes.
get-go. Like if everyone new you bring on like understands the vibe and is able to target that, you'll be much better off than if everyone's kind of working on their own art rather than just like, this is the genre, this is the plot. Be like, okay, what does this game mean? Like, what's its attitude? And are you cool pursuing that? If everyone you bring on if everyone who teams up with you shares that same vision, things become a whole lot more fun, first of all, but also like way more efficient and just like a better team.
Caelan, we've been talking a lot about like vibes first design. Like that's in all our pitch decks and shit. And recently, right, we've been like, what does that actually mean? Does that fucking mean shit, or are we just
No.
bullshitting a word? I think you just said what it means.
Yeah,
I think we got it.
I think so.
Go ahead, Ron.
So this is a question only for me, or me, Connor, and whoever else here has played
Please.
Going Under. Do you guys have like favorite characters? Because I don't know. I love all of them a great deal, except for two of them.
Except for the ones that you're designed to hate. Yeah.
Yeah, no, those two Connor and I have very long discourse about in our DMs.
Did you know there are like people on our Discord who like think Marv is really hot?
I didn't want to know that, but
I
I
didn't-
do
this
now.
fan art and shit.
No.
I didn't
I'm
want to know
not
it.
surprised.
I didn't want to know it either, man, but it happened. There's like a fan artist that like ships herself with Marv. There's some weird shit going on, dude.
Yeah, there's plenty of porn too. Like that's
So, like,
one of the
don't-
benefits of, not just of that character, every character.
Well, I figured that, but it's
Yeah.
the internet.
But like of the two to hate, like I can understand, like I hate him, but I can understand on some level being attracted to Ray. But Marv,
Ray's the total Chad, dude. I
Marv?
actually think. Yeah, I don't know. Ray-
But I mean to actually like answer the question, I suppose. Uh,
no,
I
that
don't
was
really have-
that was the better answer.
yeah. I don't have a favorite character. I think there are some that I was more worried about than others, like whether they would resonate with people. Ultimately, it took longer. Some characters took longer than others because what we wanted was for every character in the game to have their own arc, and kind of represent a different opinion on this kind of modern world and the tech industry. There's certainly like characters that were more speaking from the heart than others. Like I think Kara is the closest to like a self-insert I have in the game as far as my like opinions, although just like way exacerbated. I mean, she's the like short, grumpy, bisexual programmer who just like hates technology yet uses it. I'm really proud of Marv. I think if I had to pick a favorite character, it might be Marv from like a I'm proud of writing this guy perspective, because I wanted people to hate Marv, but people like really fucking hate Marv.
They do.
Marv is my shitty boss who I don't like.
Yeah,
I know,
like
he's everyone's, and I feel very proud about that because I think it was a fine line between like, hey, this guy's clearly like a shitty boss people can relate to, but also not making him like straight up a supervillain from the drop. Like everyone in the game kind of rides the line between caricature and human being. and I think
Yeah.
Marv was one of the harder ones to pull that off with.
Like I have a lot of friends that are like Ray, and I think a lot of people hate Ray more than I hate Ray. But like I get it.
Yeah.
I also have a lot of friends like Swamp, who's just like the stoner barista idiot. That's probably my favorite character.
Who's your favorite character visually, Nick?
Me?
Yeah.
Probably Fern, the flavor scientist. He's just got a great big silhouette. Visually, well, there's also like Lily, who's the succubus bartender, who was honestly kind of a throwaway character for me to design. It was just like, okay, I'll make a succubus bartender, and she's like consistently like a fan favorite for everyone. So I just like underestimated how far horny goes when designing characters, and I'll keep that in mind. I also think Jackie's really good. One thing you'll see in our game is that like people in the overworld look way different than the portrait, right? Like if those links Connor's posting are the portraits when the character shows up in dialogue, but then in the in-game, in like the overworld, right? Like everyone's just like a sphere and capsule human that's just like way more abstracted, right? And that was a conscious decision, because just like we wanted that feeling of like the tech industry aesthetic, everything soulless and, you know, non-confrontational. But then we wanted you to see kind of the inside layer of all these characters. So when they show up in dialogue, they look a little more human, a little more relatable. And I think that comes across well.
Any love for my man Jelly?
A little bit. A little bit of love. Any more questions? It's a good stopping point if there's no burning questions left. Yeah, but yeah, thanks again, guys, for having us. This was really fun, and hopefully we said something insightful over the course of these 2 hours. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was great to hang out with y'all anyway. Thanks for the opportunity.
Sorry about Zoom school. That really sucks, but hopefully things are better next year.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys so much for coming, and
Thank you
everybody
guys.
for attending.
It was
Yeah,
great.
thank you guys. Take care.